I see this as becoming a trend with it kind of ties in with the right to repair movement, where people are starting to demand stuff that, yes, maybe costs more money, but is made to be repaired and made to last.
There's plenty of people, even back then, that just didn't want to bother or had no skills whatsoever to repair their own shit anyway. So if something broke, they would have to go buy a new one.
If you spend a bunch of money getting a high quality product, well, you're probably not going to throw it away and buy another expensive high quality product. You might send it into the company to be repaired.
By making a planned obsolescence, you're building a scarcity that doesn't actually need to exist.
Enabled R&D sick diving.
Okay, everybody, it's time for another Kitchen Sink Microscopy. You've landed on your favorite YouTube channel with your favorite hosts, me and him. And you should like and share and subscribe to the channel because that's the obligatory YouTube thing to do.
Yep, and I am him, otherwise known as Eric Rosenblatt. And yeah, Casey and I, we write our own music, lots of it, a whole lot of it. And at the end of every episode, we put a little piece of a song that we've written, either together or on our own. So stick around to the end to check it out. And, you know, you can get full songs if you want, you know, for a small fee. It'll help support the channel. We could definitely use the support. But yeah, anyway. So, Casey, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, you know, the recent, and by recent I mean like in the last few decades, the recent trend towards building things a little bit shittier so that you have to buy them more often, the planned obsolescence. Well, I was starting to think, like, with lifespans increasing, is it possible that the medical industry is planning our obsolescence because of our drain on society as we grow older and stop dying? You know, like,
ooh, man. Okay, so we have two different angles here.
yeah.
I mean, we could definitely talk a lot about the concept of planned obsolescence, but this other one too, it's definitely connected, and that's an interesting thought. I mean, it could be. I don't know, but I mean, obviously, the longer we live, the more expensive we get to the system.
I mean, there are a lot of people who think the only reason cancer isn't cured is because, you know, like, these companies want to make their money and blah blah blah, which of course is total bullshit. Like, not necessarily like because of the reason they think, you know, like all that greed is actually there, but, you know, like, there's several different types of cancer.
Oh
And
yeah.
even if they came up with a cure, of course they would charge you $1 million for it. So, you know, there's no way they're not going to get rich off of you.
Well, and that, you're definitely onto something there, because if a cure was found, it's worth a hell of a lot of money. So if you're talking greed and people wanting to get a ton of money, well, there it is, you know.
But there might be something to the idea of keeping people from living too long, you know, longer than we used to, but not too long.
It is interesting because I remember back in, say, like the 80s and the 90s and stuff, they were saying, oh yeah, lifespans are going to keep increasing and people are going to be living comfortably to 120 years or more and stuff. And now even now we see people dying fairly young.
Mhm.
People my age, I know, friends and stuff like have died. And I mean, Randy was a special case because that was an accident that's different than natural causes. But there's a lot of people still dying fairly young.
Yeah.
And it you know, now when it comes to say like the cancer thing, um, it is possible. I could certainly see there being some kind of conspiracy in a certain situation. Let's say, for instance, there's a bunch of scientists doing research trying to find a way to get rid of cancer, and maybe they stumble across something that you can't patent because it's a common item, and they're like, or maybe they tell their boss, "Hey, whoa, look at this, we discovered that," and the boss is like, "Don't say a word, put that down on the bottom shelf in a box back in that back room. We're not going to talk about it because it's something that is super common and you can't like make any money on it." That could happen and has happened with many things. So
Yeah.
I could see that being a thing. But if there was a patentable cure, for sure, it would be out there.
Mhm.
There's so much money to be made. Think about it. How many people, if you had like late stage cancer and you're about to die and there's this cure, how much would you pay? Like, say you're in your 40s or something. It's like you would pay any amount of money. You would find a way to pay that money.
I feel like though all it takes is for one company to be like, fuck it, you know what? Like the good of humanity is more important than our shareholders.
Yeah.
Uh, and like there's a Japanese company, I think it's Toyota, maybe that's coming out with a first hydrogen powered car or whatever, where like it all the exhaust is just water, and
Mm-hmm.
they have these big battery things like looking like double A's but bigger.
It's like a fuel cell kind of thing.
Yeah,
Well, those have existed for quite a while. I mean, but
right. But it used to
working.
be that people would get disappeared by the
Yeah.
oil industry, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but but now it's like, they're coming out with this, they're like press releases and everything, like it's
Mhm.
a thing. I don't know if it's just the state of the internet today, and how things go viral so fast that you kind of can't clean up the PR mess when
Mhm.
somebody comes out with something like that.
Yeah.
So that might be the saving grace for these technologies that could save humanity,
Hmm. There,
maybe.
there are quite a few scientists and inventors and whatnot who have released their stuff basically open source because they know, and it's like we look at corporations, right, as kind of these monolithic, faceless entities, but no, they're full of human beings that work there. And amongst, yeah, sure, there's a lot of these people, fat cats and stuff that just care about the bottom line and whatnot, and up in the ivory tower, basically. But there's plenty of people who do care and
Hmm.
will, because it's like, wow, this is such a world changing thing. This needs to be out there. Uh,
Yeah.
and maybe even kind of leak the information, even if they're not supposed to. Uh,
Yeah.
that has happened quite a few times. So yeah, but I mean, I certainly could see, say, like insurance companies encouraging hospitals and doctors and people developing treatments for diseases to maybe they don't want those kinds of things because there's so
Right.
much money to be made. Although, if people live long, then the insurance companies are forking out money over a long period of time. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you have any more thoughts on that, but
I I mean, insurance companies make me barf.
I,
Um,
no kidding. Yeah.
they, they're really nothing but trouble.
Mm.
Um, but I don't know how much like overall political sway they have over the whole world as like a network mind. Um,
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's sort of, it goes back to the whole moon landing conspiracy kind of stuff, or like the flat Earth stuff. It's like, look, there's no way that millions of people could be kept silent. There is no way,
right.
absolutely no way. Like, so if
The
there
only
is,
the only way is to just make them dumb, like
which
propaganda and stuff like that.
which is okay. Well, that's kind of going on actually. That is
Yeah,
that's not a conspiracy. We know that.
yeah,
Yeah, basically distract people enough and keep them focused on other things so they don't look behind the curtain, so
right.
to speak. Yeah. Well, let's go into uh, product uh,
Hmm.
longevity and planned obsolescence in that regard, um, because that. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of throw out my thoughts on this, just to some broad stroke thoughts, to sort of start the conversation in that regard. Um, there is definitely an incentive for many companies to make products not last very long.
Yeah,
Um, it well, Apple is certainly guilty of that. Like a perfectly good iPhone just stops working because they decided it's obsolete now or something, just to kind of nudge you in to get like, or they slow it down. It's like it's only slowing down because of the software.
yeah.
They intentionally made it do that, so you'll be like, "Oh man, this old phone sucks. I'm gonna get the new one." You know,
And yeah, like every year they have a new phone, and it's not even that much cooler than the old one.
that's actually that's a continuing meme too. Like everybody knows that, yet people still line up to get the newest iPhone and pay exorbitant fees for basically, like, you could go to you can go to Walmart and get yourself a smartphone for $40 that basically does everything the iPhone does. Maybe not as good. I will give it to Apple. This is something, their ecosystem, their product quality, like, it's pretty good. It's like it does just work. So, but it also is a trap and a cult. So,
Right.
there is that.
Yeah.
Um, but like the other side too, it's like, okay, well, things keep getting more expensive, and companies, in order to be able to provide a product to people at a reasonable price, a price they will be willing to pay, they have to start figuring out clever ways of making the product cheaper, and become more efficient or something, using less material, using glue instead of screws, like that kind of thing, and automation and stuff. And it's like, the ultimately, I think products are still pretty okay, but for sure, one of the things is the customers demand a good product at a cheap price, the cheapest price possible. And so, how do you supply that? Well, you got to cut corners. And by
Yeah.
doing so, you compromise the quality of a product to an extent, to the extent that you cut corners. And so, like, maybe certainly, I certainly believe that a lot of companies intentionally design their products to break, that to not last. But
Oh yeah.
but at the same time, it's like you can't not do that as well. Like, you like, because of, okay, it's like, oh well, I can buy this cheap device or whatever. Well, why would I spend 10 times the price for this thing over here, when I could buy that thing over there, even though it's not going to last? Like shoes, for instance, right? You can go to Walmart and buy yourself a pair of shoes for $10, $20, right? But they're not going to hold up. I've done it. I know they don't last. They don't even last like 6 months before they start falling apart.
Yeah.
Whereas if you spend $80 or $100 on, even at Walmart, uh, for like shoes there, those do last. Like they'll last a year or more, 2 years. I have a pair of $80 boots that I've been wearing for the last 2 years, and they're just now starting to come apart.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
I mean,
yeah,
I know what you're saying, but it's not it's not like it's a requirement for these corporations to constantly be in existence and constantly be making exorbitant profits. Like if a company kind of has their heyday and and then peters out because like their one cool thing isn't cool anymore, but like it's built in well enough that people are giving it to their kids and their grandkids or whatever. Okay, cool. Like you built a legacy, you probably like gave your kids some money and blah blah, and then the next company comes up, and that's how it should be going. But
Yeah.
instead, you just get these like monoliths that don't have a right to exist, but they act as if they do. Like they're like, but we have to make profit.
Well,
otherwise we'll die. Like,
the thing is that's the difference between like a privately held company and a publicly traded company. When you have shareholders, that's the issue right there.
yeah.
Because the shareholders don't care about the product. They don't care about the customers. They don't even care about the company that they own part of. They care about the bottom line. They want to make, they want a return on investment, basically. So they pressure these companies to do things to make more money for themselves. And so that's the problem. But when you have a privately held company, well, you're not beholden to anybody except yourself and your customers. And a lot of those companies tend to do pretty well as far as producing decent products and stuff like that. I mean, it's nice having the option of buying a product that's made in, say, China that's cheap, right? Like, oh, you can go to Harbor Freight Tools and you can buy yourself like a drill that's $20 or something, like a battery powered drill, and it'll work, but it's not the best. And I like having that option available, but I don't want that to be the only option. It's nice to have quality products, and I see this as becoming a trend. With it kind of ties in with the right to repair movement, where people are starting to demand stuff that, yes, maybe costs more money, but is made to be repaired and made to last a while.
Yeah.
And that's something like some of the old, I have a bunch of old products like electronics and stuff. I collect a lot of that stuff. And some of it back in the day, it was typical for you'd buy some electronic, like a radio or a calculator or something, and it would have like repair instructions included.
Yeah.
It might even have a schematic that
well, I don't know why they moved away from that, because here's the thing, like there's plenty of people even back then that just didn't want to bother or had no skills whatsoever to repair their own shit anyway. So if something broke, they would have to go buy a new one. It's not like you build like the most indestructible thing and nobody will ever buy your shit anymore.
Well, and that's the engineering concept of the three different rules, like fast, cheap, or quality, that kind of thing. And you can have well, and but here's the thing too. There's people will not always, if you spend a bunch of money getting a high quality product, well, you're probably not going to throw it away and buy another expensive high quality product. You might send it into the company to be repaired, or go to a shop that they have somewhere to be repaired. And there's tons and tons of money to be made selling parts. Like, product you sell, if you sell parts for a product, you can keep making money off that product long after people have stopped buying it. That's actually something I want to highlight. My phone, the Unihertz Titan Pocket, this company is freaking sweet. So on their website, they sell parts and they have instructions for replacement of parts. They build the phone to be repaired. There's screws all over, like common types of screws. You can unscrew it, take it apart, and you get yourself another screen for like $20 or whatever. Everything's fairly cheap, and they even have like videos that you can watch, like, oh, how to replace the screen on your phone, how to replace the battery, and the phone, like iPhones. Good luck replacing the battery. They have chips in them, and they'll recognize that an unauthorized battery is put in there, and they'll brick themselves. Like, that is shit. That is bullshit. Yeah. And I want to see more Unihertz like stuff where they're built to not. I mean, this phone is solid. It's not.
Printers started doing that.
Yeah.
Like back when we had a business, they were starting to get into that. Like, oh, that's not an OEM ink cartridge. It won't work anymore.
I know, but the thing is, I think these companies, maybe, I don't know, there's something gets lost in translation or something, but they don't realize that there is a shit ton of money to be made in just selling parts.
Mm-hmm.
Like if say Epson or whatever, like they sold replacement parts and you could just buy another
Yeah.
print head carriage or something.
There's also a shit ton of overhead that goes into that, and like stocking all the parts, making them, stocking them, and then having them sit on the shelf. And it's like,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
yeah, I know. And I mean but maybe we need to change our mindset in general of like, hey, we buy something and we're gonna hang on to it for a while,
yeah,
not go buy a new iPhone every goddamn year. We're gonna buy an iPhone and we're gonna use it for 10 years and
mm-hmm.
only change to a new phone when it's like, oh, this just doesn't work anymore. And and that kind of cycle makes sense too. From okay, a company could support a product for a decade, right? That's not totally unreasonable. Maybe we don't need to be like going to the moon with our development and our technologies and stuff like that. We need something that works and operates well and is built to last, and that kind of thing. It's like that. Well, like the shoes thing. Like, yeah, you can buy a $20 pair of shoes, but if you spend $100 on a pair of shoes, you're going to have shoes that are going to last, and you might even have shoes that can be repaired too. You would never send a $20 pair of Walmart shoes to the shoe shop to be resold or something like that.
And the other end of obsolescence when it comes to products and humans, I guess, is the idea that I don't know, like by making a planned obsolescence, you're building a scarcity that doesn't actually need to exist.
It's artificial. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like we are actually living in a post-scarce society. We do have the means and the brain power and the human power and the artificial intelligence power to make it so nobody needs anything. And of course, that's not a profitable venture.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like good for humanity.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was just actually talking to a girlfriend about the all Elon Musk's projects and stuff like that. And it popped into my head, like, if I had the kind of resources he had, I would probably be developing humanitarian things, open source shit. Like,
mm-hmm.
I'm going to build a research facility that's going to try to tackle all of the big problems that humans deal with, and build solutions that are completely open source, not free. We're not going to hand out solutions, but we're going to give you, like, we have developed something that works, that is economical, both in terms of materials and in terms of like the environment or whatnot, and could be cobbled together with whatever anybody has, that kind of thing. I think it'd be great. Like, we need more of that. And
oh yeah,
and it's like, actually, here's the thing too. If you think about it, you're right. I do agree. We technically could be a post-scarcity planet. The problem is people are chasing these shiny things all the time. Gotta keep the Joneses, gotta have the newest, best thing, gotta have the coolest thing, and all this. And like, it.
I mean, that doesn't have to go away.
No, not at all. I mean, that's part of humans love shiny things.
Yeah.
That's cool.
If the shiny things become actually scarce because we're putting more effort and resources toward things that are needed to be available for everybody, then you'll actually have like a real genuine scarcity and people like clamoring for this really cool shiny thing.
Yeah.
And like, what's wrong with that? Like,
bespoke items are the things that would, like, well, in the Star Trek world, right? Like, yeah, sure, you can replicate pretty much anything, but like, something old that hasn't been replicated, that has been around for 500 years or something. That's really special. That's really cool. An artifact or something. Yeah, or something that was handmade or whatever. Those will always be valuable. But I was just thinking too, like my uncle, he passed away recently, but he was a one percenter. Started the company Big Toys. Very good, cool guy. And he like he drove a VW Rabbit from the 70s his whole life. He never, I mean, he had an old Jaguar that he restored just for fun, and then I think he sold it or gave it away or something. But I mean, that was what he drove, like an old ass car from the 70s into like the 2020s and stuff. And he didn't really flaunt his money. He didn't give it away, or he didn't like do anything flashy or anything. Like he built houses for his kids and stuff, and he built a church, like a big, huge church that is like a community center in the area. And he helped all kinds of people. Like at his funeral, it was amazing to see all these people stand up and tell the story about how they were destitute, just like basically they were at the end of their rope, and my uncle came and like helped them and get them back on their feet and stuff. And that's what he did. That was his MO.
More people like that.
yeah. I mean, awesome guy. Like he would give. So my parents didn't have a whole lot of money when I was growing up, but my uncle would get presents for me and my brother, like for Christmas or birthdays or whatnot, that my parents couldn't necessarily afford, but they were always tied to some kind of learning, like an electronics kit, a chemistry set, a telescope or something, like things that you can learn from. It wasn't like, oh yeah, that stupid transformer that you want, he never any of that stuff. It was always stuff that you could learn from, hands-on kinds of things. And that's cool. Like I owe a lot of who I am to my uncle, and that like the things that he did there.
Should make a little like biopic video for the channel. Like, I mean, since like everybody knows Big Toys, like it would be kind of interesting for people to know about the guy who made Big Toys.
Yeah,
like and to just be an inspiration for other people, like do something good with fortune when it comes your way, because like
exactly,
if you don't, no one else will. And I mean that's pretty evident by like just the state of things now. Like I saw an interview with Bill Gates, and he was talking about how he had chatted with Bernie Sanders, and it was for like the Late Show or something. So of course there was some laughter that ensued from this, but he was like, yeah, Bernie would rather me take like 99% of my money and give it to tax. And the guy interviewing him was like, so like how much would that leave you? And he's like, well, I'd still be a billionaire. Like, 99% of your money goes away, you're still a billionaire. Who fucking cares then? Like,
well, I mean, as an anarchist, I wouldn't want it to go to tax. I'd want somebody to create like a facility, research facility, or some kind of foundation that has a lot of weight, but like a lot of.
Why aren't they doing that? Why aren't they doing that? I would do that. Like if I had that much money sitting around doing nothing, basically, like I would just make it do the most good in the world that it could,
Yeah. Well,
not do like more interest for me, like just like lift everybody up,
Yeah, a self-sustaining system too. Like, okay, those who know me know I love open source stuff, especially tech. Arduino is one. Actually, my watch right here is Arduino based, so it's completely open source. It's take apartable. They have all the schematics. Like, okay, you don't have to buy the watch. You can build it from the schematics they have on their website. All the code, everything is free to use, but they also sell kits. which that's what this is, a ready-made kit with metal housing and stuff. And that's how they fund their operations. The Arduino company does that too. Like everything is open. Anybody's free to make their own version of an Arduino, and they freely release it. And it's like, yeah, you can go onto eBay or whatever and buy the cheap Chinese Arduino that may or may not work. But if your project is critical, you spend a little bit more money and buy it from Arduino themselves, the actual company. Raspberry Pi, that's another one. I have this thing. This is an open source portable computer that runs on Linux and has a Raspberry Pi inside. This too is completely open source. I could have 3D printed the housing, put together my own boards and whatnot, but I chose to buy the kit because it saves me time. And I know that it's going to work because I don't trust my skills that well with something this complex. But see, that's the thing. You can have free flow of information where anybody has access to be able to do it themselves and also make a ton of money. I mean, Arduino makes so much money that they're constantly developing new things and coming up with different designs and stuff like that. And it's like, well, yeah, they finish a project and then publish the schematics and all the code and whatnot. And then they sell them, and then other people make their own versions of them. It's awesome. Like, why can't we do that with everything?
Well, that's the problem with medicine. To kind of go back to that angle, you can't really have, like, it wouldn't do any good to have open source medicine because you can't really operate on yourself. You can't safely diagnose yourself and medicate yourself. These are things that are just impractical or impossible to pull off, and the systems that are in place to facilitate that for you are entrenched in status quo,
bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I wouldn't necessarily, when it comes to medicine, for instance, when you're talking surgery, obviously you want a skilled person to do surgery on you. One false slip of a scalpel and it's over. But I, in this sense, I don't necessarily mean that an individual person could take on, because certain people could, when it comes to medicine, say like just drugs or something like that. There are probably people out there who could do it themselves all on their own. But my thought is more like companies, like say this company develops a product that works like a medicine or something like that, but it's still open. So they publish all their information, and other companies who do kind of the same stuff could also make their own version. It's like, think about things that are not patented anymore. Aspirin, right? Well, yeah, you can go to the Dollar Tree and spend $1.25 and get a big ass bottle of aspirin, but people don't usually do that. They look for the bare aspirin. They trust it. So it's like, even then, even with it being way out of patent, where literally anybody can make aspirin, people still go to the one that they trust, the brands that, like the originator, the OG, who originally created it and is really good at making it.
Their headquarters is very close to me,
actually. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, even if you gave away the secrets to everything, brand recognition and trust that's been developed because you're the one that everybody knows, like, oh my God, Bayer, they're the ones that make the best stuff. And so it's like, hey, if you see the Bayer aspirin for sale for like $6, and then next to it is the generic aspirin that's like $5, you'd be like, I think I'm going to go spend $6 on the one that I know is going to be good. But if you're pinching pennies, then at least you have the option of the cheap one. So yeah, I mean, we need more of that. We're stifling innovation by keeping everything behind closed doors and keeping secrets and stuff. Like there are so many. I can't even imagine how many world-changing ideas are locked up in some fucking stupid room somewhere, forgotten about, that probably, you know, are collecting dust. They've been collecting dust for 100 years or something.
What if we made our own search engine, a kitchen sink microscopy search engine, and sponsorship is only offered, only allowed by small business. Like, you're not a publicly traded company. You're the little guy. You're in it for, you know, passion for what you're doing,
Yeah.
and not just pure profit and churning out a bunch of obsolete bullshit, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like, searching for stuff often has something to do with a product anyway, you know, and so like it would kind of push, in an algorithm sort of sense, it would push the little guy up a little bit more into the limelight, let's say. And
And
you know,
that's the thing.
if that took off, like it could actually have a chance to like push against these giants like
Oh yeah.
Google, Walmart, blah blah blah.
Oftentimes the indie stuff is much more innovative and revolutionary than the stuff made by corporations, big companies and stuff. But here's the thing, like the little guy doesn't necessarily have the resources to build a particular thing to in the way that it needs to be done. Economies of scale. The big corporations, they have fat wallets, so they can afford to build a factory to make a thing super cheap and super fast.
But the thing that keeps that the way it is, you know, the status quo angle of it is like people just buy what they know, you know. They're like, well, I need a phone, I guess I'll just get an Apple. They don't know, like, I already forgot what your phone is called, you know, because it's not like drilled into the head, you know?
Yeah. Well, and,
Like,
and that's why campaign signs, I fucking hate those. The political campaign signs, they're all over the place. It's because people are kind of trained to just vote based on familiarity. Like, oh, I've seen that name all over the place. They must be the person to vote for. I don't even know what their platform is, but I'm going to check the checkbox. Like, how stupid is that? And that's the thing. It's like nobody know. I showed coworkers my phone and Unihertz's website, and they were blown away by the kind of stuff they have. They have a phone that has like almost the entire back is a flashlight. It's designed for outdoors stuff, and it has a battery. I think it was like 22,000 milliamp hours or something. So, well, 22 amp hours, which is crazy for a phone. Like, you can have this phone running for like a week, doing GPS, doing all this stuff, playing videos and whatnot. Like, and it's cheap. It's like, it isn't that much money compared to other phones. But nobody knows about it. And it's like, it's designed to be repaired. We need more of that.
Yeah. You know, like what you said about political signs, there's a great song out there, and the lyrics were something like, "Boats are swayed by signs and lawns. Now it's too late to change your mind."
Gee, I wonder who wrote that one.
Yeah.
If only
some song out there.
That would actually be a good song to end this video on. Yeah. Well, yeah, actually, speaking of that too, it's kind of funny. I saw this video because I love the concept of tiny houses and DIY housing and stuff. And I came across this video where a guy built a bicycle trailer camper out of campaign signs, like the corrugated plastic ones. He used like these plastic campaign signs and punched holes and used zip ties and put it together. And yeah, it had a bed in it. It had like cabinets with drawers, all made of campaign signs. And you could tow it with a bicycle.
It's like our milk crate house.
I know. Yeah, exactly. But see, that I love that because that's clever and reusing. Like, we need to reuse things. I hate disposable society. We're in that mode. I mean, we're slowly getting out of that, but it's so damaging and harmful, not only to your wallet, but to the environment, that we're just throwing shit away that could still work, could be repurposed for something. I mean, honestly, if you could take everything that you throw away and just reuse it one time, that would make a massive impact.
Yeah.
Just one time. Take your grocery bag or something like that, and maybe the paper ones, you wrap a present using it, or you just use, like I used to do when in Tacoma they would have the plastic grocery bags. I'd use it for a cat litter bin.
Right. Yeah.
So
I loved it for that.
Yeah, exactly. It's
thing.
okay. I used it a second time. It got my groceries home, and then I put the cat litter in it. Like that's because now
back in the day, it would cover our school books with paper bags too.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, you'd make the covers and then you draw different things. Oh, that was I miss those days. But see, now I go to the store and I buy brand new a box of bags for the cat litter, because they don't give out bags anymore.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, now I'm kind of doing more harm than good, because it's now I'm like only using each thing once in that regard.
See, that's it kind of related to planned obsolescence. It's sort of like an idiot obsolescence sort of situation where we're like getting rid of things because they're bad for the environment, but we're just replacing them with other things that are bad for the environment.
Yeah.
That are just a little bit more inconvenient.
Exactly. Well, and it's funny too. It's like people going and buying like Priuses or electric cars like Teslas and stuff, when they have a perfectly functioning car. If you think about it, yes, I know the emissions from an old car are a consideration. There's certainly a thing you have to think about. But if you have a running car that maybe something stops working, but it's like a PCV valve or something, right? Something, a $4 part you can stick in there and keep it running. That is more environmentally friendly. That's more eco-friendly than putting that in the junkyard and going out and buying a brand new car.
Right.
Like, it's fine if your car is beyond repair, that make, or it's like, okay, it's going to cost me $20,000 to fix this. I don't have that kind of money. I'm going to go get a loan for a new car. Sure, that's fine. Although I would never recommend buying a brand new car. Buy a newer car, but don't buy one that's brand new, because that's stupid. Let the rich people do that. Let them soak up the devaluation and then buy it when it's a few years old.
I bought a new car here in Germany. It's the first time I've ever done that. And it was like a year, like a model from the year before or something. That was like the showroom floor model or something. It had like, I don't know, like 15,000 miles on it already. And there was like dog hair in it. And we're like, there's like dog hair in here. And oh no, there's never been a dog in that car. And blah, blah, blah. And like later on we found like treats or like a dog tag or something. And like, it's like, yeah, there's a dog in here.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't always a showroom floor model.
Yeah, somebody was driving that car and they sold it as new.
Oh man. Yeah, I think it's important, maybe, well, like the whole tiny house thing ties into this simplification of our lives, like maybe reducing complexity, the amount of stuff we have and the stuff we have to maintain. I mean, I have a lot of stuff. I'm guilty of that. But I try my best to take care of the planet and be conscious of, actually, a lot of stuff I have is repurposing stuff. Like I find things that would otherwise be thrown in, end up in the dump. And I turn it into other stuff. But like, I think we need to encourage a mindset of like, maybe spend a little bit more money and buy something that's made a little bit better And we need to be supporting companies like Unihertz that build phones that are designed to be repaired, that are built pretty well, and put more, like, vote with your wallet, essentially. Like, I mean, yeah, I know you want the newest iPhone or Samsung or whatever, but maybe consider that those companies don't give a shit. They're building stuff that is not intended to last. It's intended to be flashy and the newest, coolest thing. Um, Go with, maybe, I don't know, make some sacrifices and go with something that might not necessarily have all the bells and whistles that you want, but is technically, ultimately, at the end of the day, better.
Yeah. But then when it comes to like medicine and stuff, like you don't really have a way to to affect change in the direction that um medicine would be working toward making you live longer. um just because like there's all the safety testing and ethical aspects of making sure what you're developing won't kill you, which is super important.
That is important.
And costs a whole bunch of money. So like of course you need that economic infrastructure of like lots of money pouring into it, right?
Yeah. Well, of course, because, like,
But it's also not feasible for people to be paying that much personally to just stay alive. Like that's
it would
dumb.
be, so now early adopters would be the ones who would pay the high fees, and then over time the price should come down, as it becomes more widely available and more people make it and there's competition and whatnot. And that's where it's like, okay, if you want to keep secrets as a company, keep secrets for like 5 years and then let it go. Like, at that point, because it's like, okay, well, we know how to make aspirin. Like, I can make aspirin at home. It's,
Or just sell a fucking license to other places. Like,
yeah.
hey, if you want to make this cheaper and sell it cheaper, just give us a big chunk of money, like, and make the companies do that heavy lifting,
Yeah.
like, and of course don't like gouge them so that they can actually like save lives,
Mhm.
because it's super important. You can't say, well, I'm going to wait for the early adopters if you have cancer and you might die in 6 months. You're going to want the
Well,
drug that might save you.
that's
you know?
true, but I mean, eventually that thing will be fairly inexpensive and widely available. And I mean,
You would hope so, but
yeah.
you still see all these like crazy insulin prices, and like that's 40-50 years old.
Well,
Like,
insulin, like, has been out of patent for a long time, but then they keep changing the formula up a little bit and repatenting it. Like, okay, that's a little bit shifty. And that's where I'm
mhm.
like, my point is, we need, as a culture, a human culture, we need to change our mindset and expect different things and not settle for the status quo. Don't accept that. That's bullshit. Like, no, we won't allow that. We want things to be different. And, like, stop buying into the Apple cult mentality and stuff. Don't buy Apple when they keep
Mhm.
beating you up over and over. What was it? Bendgate. Like, you're holding it wrong or something, and people keep coming back. It's like, dude, they're beaten puppy dog syndrome or something like that. Like, what the hell? I
Yeah.
don't understand. Why do people love the abuse? Uh,
Uh,
I would have, yeah, after that stuff, I would have long gone away from Apple. Um, well, yeah, I don't know. Medicine's kind of an interesting one. And I don't know exactly how to tackle that, but there's probably
yeah,
greater minds than mine that could figure that out.
right. I mean, it's because of that aspect that I would think there's not really a conspiracy going on necessarily as far as like wanting to not let people live that long. I like that's more of a tertiary effect of what's really going on, which is all the greed and everything. But I don't think it's designed to make people live shorter lives. It's just
Well, no, because you got to look at like the individuals who are down at the bottom, the frontline troops, so to say. Um, they don't have they want to create a revolutionary solution. That's what their goal is. They're trying to find a solution to a thing, and so I doubt that there's some mustache twirling evil guy that you never see his face who's like smoking a cigar and is like, make sure they don't live very long, make sure this doesn't work very well. No, no, I mean, the company obviously is trying to make money, and the people who are developing these things know that they're trying to develop a life-saving solution. So I don't think there's a conspiracy. I think, though, the way things work kind of undermines the work that these companies and these people are doing.
Yeah.
And the existence of patents is one of those, and the longevity of patents, which is way too long, in my opinion, way too long. If you look, so there's I do a lot of 3D printing. There's a 3D printer back behind me there. And there's a site called Thingiverse, which is sort of a open platform where people share 3D models and stuff and information about 3D printing. And it's like, so somebody posts something, right? I actually I came across one just as an example that was like a little sundial kind of thing, but it was digital. So you'd orient it correctly, and there were little openings, like holes all up and down it. And it, as the sun moved, it would show the time like it was a digital clock. and so somebody created that, and then other people took that and modified it into various designs and improved on it, and they keep improving it. And it's like, there's things that now there's a stand, so you don't have to create one. It's like integrated into it and all this stuff, and maybe differences. And oh yeah, we figured out how to kind of clean this up a little bit. And and everybody gives credit to the people who came before. And it's like the pace of evolution on that site is astounding. Like the kinds of things that you can find. I've contributed some things there myself. I mean, and it's like, hey, if I come up with some kind of thing, I'm going to share it. Like, why would I hang on to that? Because it's like, it was like I spent a bunch of time solving a problem that was frustrating to me, and now I made it easy for the next person. So all that effort that I put in, they don't have to do that. They can just download a file and pop it in their printer, and out it comes. They don't even have to think about it.
There's a 3D printer at the library near my house. I think that's kind of cool. Like making it totally accessible to everybody, really.
Oh, you know what? The 3D printer is like almost like a early days Star Trek replicator.
It is. Yeah.
It is so cheap now. I mean, yeah, you can go with Creality's stuff, which is fairly inexpensive. But there's even cheaper. You can spend less than $100 and have a functioning 3D printer. $100 homeless people could buy those and print things. Like it's that cheap now. And of course, all the plans are generally free. There's people who sell plans, and I'm fine with that. Like, okay, fine. Usually the prices are pretty nominal, $20 or whatever, and you could download the STL and slice it and print it and whatnot. But that technology is getting cheaper and better. Like I remember when 3D printers first came on the scene, and they cost like $50,000, and they sucked. They absolutely sucked. And now, like the Ender 3 behind me, that thing is $200. Actually, I think it's a little bit less. There's a better one. It's the same price. It has like a full touchscreen interface and all this stuff, and it's even better than it was before. Same price. But
I should get one, because that phenomenon isn't going to last. Like, things coming down in price like that is supposed to happen, but it almost never actually does because greed. So like I would not be surprised if before too long it gets expensive again. And
Well, the
if you
problem
think about
it won't get expensive because there's so many players now that there's no way. Like, because if for instance, Creality decided to sell the Ender 3 for $1,000, people would just simply not buy it. They'd buy the one off of Alibaba that's $79. Like they'd buy that one because it's like, oh, or any number of the other ones. There's so many, and they're just getting better.
Yeah, but Apple,
Well, yeah, well, but I mean, they're not the only game in town. That's the thing.
Yeah, but still, people just buy it because they successfully create the cult to think this is what I need. And
well, that's true, but even like look at so Apple, yeah, they're really huge, and a lot of people buy iPhones and stuff. But then lots of people buy Samsung phones and Android. Like that's also
but they're not cheap either.
Oh, they can be. Like my Unihertz phone was 200 and something, and that's Android. Like modern Android phone. It actually has a keyboard too. Actually, a really cool keyboard that has touch capability. So you can like instead of like touching the screen to swipe or scroll, you can slide along the keyboard, which is badass. Like, dude, what you could do? You could interact with it without touching the screen. That's so cool. Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is like to have a 3D printer in your house as like a standard utility. Yeah, I think a lot of people like struggle to think, what would I ever use that for? But I recently have been trying to find a spoon that's big enough for my hand but not too big for my mouth. Well, I could just print one.
Yeah, you can. And this is the thing too. There's free software. Like what I use. I use FreeCAD for design, which is a really extremely capable piece of software. I don't ever really touch what it can do because I mean it can do like stress analysis of like different materials and stuff. So if you print with this material or that material, it can like anyway, it could do a lot of stuff. And then Ultimaker Cura for slicing, those are both free and they work really, really well. So free software, and that's the thing. It's like so actually as a good example where like you're saying it becomes just an appliance that everybody has. My dad, he has a dishwasher in the house, and at one point in time, the little clip that holds the detergent door closed broke, and he spent months and months trying to find a replacement part. Ended up having to spend like $100 getting this little plastic thing that has a spring hook on the end of it. It was like $100, and I'm thinking, yeah, if he had a 3D printer, he could just take the broken pieces and measure them and then print that, and it would cost like 1 penny, if that. I don't even know that something small like that would even cost. You couldn't even calculate the cost of it. It'd be so low. And for me too, like most of the stuff that I originally used the 3D printer for was novelty stuff. Just, oh yeah, I'm gonna make myself a little one-time pad encoder decoder device, that kind of stuff. But then it was wintertime and I have a propane heater as kind of like an augmented backup to the electric heat. And it's one of those tank top heaters. It has a little knob that you twist to set the like how much heat you're getting. Well, one day it was all cold and stuff, and I went to turn it on, and there was a little click, and then all of a sudden it was kind of free spinning. I'm like, ah, shit, something broke. So I unscrewed the knob and took it off, and there's this little weird castle-y looking thing that has different heights on the posts that kind of determine the valve, like how open the valve is. And that sure enough, that broke. So I sat there with my calipers and like measured everything, and drafted one up and 3D printed it, stuck it in there, and it's still working like that. And that was years ago. So I didn't have to buy a new thing. I was able to fix that. And it's like that right there, too. That's so eco friendly.
Yeah.
Rather than paying a bunch of money for a replacement part and having some dude with a forklift drive around in a warehouse and pick something from a shelf, and then it goes on a truck or a plane and flies all the way across the country just for some little tiny piece. No, I just sat there and it took I don't maybe about the electricity of a 60-watt light bulb or something like that to print one up, and I had it in minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I would like to get one of those because it's like there's probably no real limit to what you can create with that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't care like about brand names and how something looks, you can just print it with a little bit of effort,
Well, and the thing is, with a 3D printer, with a few exceptions, you can literally print anything. A replacement part, a replacement battery cover, like some kind of, well, I actually, because of shrinkflation, toilet paper rolls have gotten more and more narrow. And I ran into the issue with my toilet paper holder where they were so narrow that they were flopping around. So I 3D printed a spacer to solve that problem, just like a ring that I slid in there so the rolls actually fit tight now. And like there's any number of solutions you can devise.
I think you did a minute microscopy about that.
I did. It's like at the end, I think I'm like, well, eventually toilet paper is going to be like this. It was like this little tiny roll. It's like, I mean, everybody should have a 3D printer. Everybody should play around with one. I mean, not everybody has the knowledge, I guess, to be able to create 3D models, but
yeah, drafting isn't easy.
No, but Thingiverse, and there's more places than Thingiverse, but Thingiverse is kind of like the big dog. You just go to Thingiverse and look up whatever you want, and there's probably something there. And
how's it do with like glass replacement, like for a light fixture or something?
Well, there's clear
possible.
You can do clear filament now. It's your bed size that you have to worry about. So like the Ender 3 behind me, I think is 220 millimeters in all three dimensions. Actually might be 240 vertical. But I mean, that's enough. You could print something big or maybe do it in two parts. Or a resin printer. Those are really messy, but they're still pretty cheap. Like you can get a resin printer for not that much more. Like, and those do amazing things. It's very cool technology, and this actually ties in with planned obsolescence, because it's like, hey, even if the company no longer supplies a part, well, with a little bit of thought and a little bit of measurement and some gumption, you could 3D print a replacement piece and make that thing work again.
Well, and I think there's even like 3D printing of human organs going on.
Yes. Yep.
Utilizing like stem cells and so on, just to make it so it wouldn't, the body wouldn't reject it. So, even in that aspect, that technology could be making it. I don't even think Star Trek did that. Like they. Well, didn't they replicate a spine for Worf?
I think so. Yeah,
I think they did. Yeah, actually,
I'm trying to remember where I think it was replicated. Yeah,
yeah,
or grown from something that was replicated.
So that's effectively like in the works already. So
yeah. Oh, imagine that too, because it's like people who need an organ to be replaced. Imagine instead of having to wait for a donor to donate a particular organ and, get on the list, and maybe you get it, maybe you don't. Like, oh, you go to the hospital and they're like, oh man, your heart's failing, you need a new heart or something. Well, they just like pop the plans into the 3D printer, and a couple hours later out comes a functioning heart, and they just transplant it, or a kidney or whatever, bones or something like that. That technology, it sounds futuristic, but it exists today. I remember reading in a magazine, I want to say it was probably like 15 years ago, about some scientists who were using 3D printers. Those are these are like the $50,000 3D printers I'm talking about, where they use like some kind of gelatin and cells. So the gelatin or whatever was like the material that the cells were in, and the printer would deposit those cells in layers, and they 3D printed a functioning cat heart. That was 15 years ago, maybe more. So it's like, we have the capacity to do that. If we can 3D print a cat heart, I mean, you could literally 3D print anything. I mean, they could,
They use cat P.
Cat P, yeah. The acronym, yeah.
Speaking of organs, Randy's heart, both kidneys and eyes went to donees, I guess. So he saved some lives and or quality of life.
Nice.
So.
Nice. Oh, and yeah, I'm a organ donor. I don't like the way it works in the US, but nevertheless, it's about as good as we can do with what we've got. And I would highly recommend, like, why not be an organ donor? Who cares when you're dead? You're fucking dead. Just have them do what the Egyptians did: stuff you full of cotton and linen and whatnot, and then throw you in a coffin and put you in the ground, or I don't know, incinerate you, or turn you into mulch or something. There's a whole bunch of different options. But yeah, I'm an organ donor. I think everybody should be. You probably don't want my liver or kidneys, but everything else is good.
I want AI to recreate my personality and just stick my brain in like a robot.
Or like Futurama, like a brain in a jar. That'd be interesting. Oh yeah. Oh geez, this chair is falling off the chair.
I use 3D print a chair.
I know I should probably. Well, the seat is a little bit too big. I might have to handcraft that out of plywood or something, because it's made of plastic, and the plastic cracked, and then now it just keeps cracking further. But I mean, if I had
this is your brain on crack.
Hey kids, this is crack. If anybody remembers the PSA from like the 80s with Pee Wee Herman. Oh man. Yeah. Oh, that reminds me, like, remember Colin Powell holding up the yellow cake uranium that Iraq supposedly had? You can actually buy yellow cake. You can just buy it. I was looking for something the other day.
I prefer chocolate, but
yeah. No, you can buy it. It's just like a thing you can buy, mail order and stuff like that. So it's like, well, wait a minute. If this is some kind of, anyway, just that's a little bit of an aside. I just, man, I wish we could encourage more people to buy the more expensive thing that maybe it costs a little bit more, but it's built better, built to last, and be repairable, and learn how to repair things. Or maybe there will be industries that will start popping up to repair things. Like, there's a shoe shop down the road from here, like a shoe repair place that I never see anybody in. It's always closed. But but that used to be a thing that people would go to the tailor and they'd have their clothing repaired and or adjusted and stuff, and you would buy a shirt and it would last your whole life.
When I see stuff like that nowadays, I'm like, that's got to be a front for drug sales.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. And that's unfortunate because it used to be that we would buy things and we'd fix things. Cars too. Like that's like I do a lot all my own car repair. The only time I've ever gotten rid of a car is when it's beyond the scope of my capacity to do. Like my last Volvo 850, finally the transmission went out and I bought a transmission and all the stuff and then took a look at what was involved and I'm like, yeah, I don't think I want to do that. But what I ended up doing, I went on Craigslist, sold the car and all the stuff, the transmission, all the tools and things for $100 to a guy who was going to rebuild it and give it to his grandkid, his granddaughter.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, that's cool. Like I bought a used car. It was reused there in that regard. And then I sold it to a guy who was going to repair it and reuse it again.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we do that more and more? Why? I think it's the kind of thing that everybody at least once in their life should go to a sewage treatment plant, because people think, oh, I'm just going to flush it down the toilet. And then that's the last they think of it. Like, no, there's a whole infrastructure that whatever you flushed goes down and goes through, and facilities it goes into. And there's a whole team of people messing around with that stuff, trying to figure out how to clean it up so that they can, get rid of it basically. And same thing with the dump. Go to the dump just as a visitor, not to bring anything there, and just look at what they do. Go to most dumps have visitor centers that kind of talk about how they process things, and it's super fascinating. But it's like, we need to be conscious of that stuff. Don't just take your old iPhone and chuck it in the garbage and think, oh yeah, it's gone. No, it's not gone. It's probably going to be there 1,000 years from now. Maybe not in the form that it was in, but like a coworker of mine, he was one of those people that used to just like, oh, whatever, I'm going to he'll throw away anything, even if it's recyclable. And then he saw this video that was talking about garbage and the longevity of various things that you throw away. And they made the point is like, hey, glass will, like, if you throw glass away, it'll probably exist for like 1,000,000 years in the same state. And he's like, huh. And he started recycling glass after that.
It's also not like,
it's not hurting anything.
Yeah, it's not leaching chemicals or anything. So.
No, but this is another thing too. Back in the day, we used to, like, Coca-Cola used to come in glass bottles, and there was a whole system in place where you'd pay a deposit for every bottle, and then when you brought them back, you'd get that deposit back. They're basically encouraging you to take it back to the store, and then the company Coca-Cola would come and pick the bottles up, and then they clean them out, because they can be cleaned easily 100 times or more and reused.
This is something I was compiling a list of differences between the US and Germany, but this is one of them. Everywhere you go, there are these machines that will take plastic bottles back and give you store credit. So like there's constantly like lines of people bringing in these like bags of bottles, and you can get like, I don't know, like €5 worth of groceries or something. Like for your bottles.
Well,
that's cool.
Plastic, that is. I mean, that's a good thing, although plastic is not quite as easily reusable as glass. Yeah. Nothing compares to glass. The only reason plastic is...
But at least it can be disposed of properly rather than just like chucking it wherever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, you could compress it down and bury it, and it'll be just fine, probably. we're not running out of room for garbage anytime soon. But like that doesn't matter. Like we should still be aware of that and still be trying our best to take care of the planet, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's the only planet we got as far as
Well,
we
they,
know.
they turn plastic into clothing and everything. Like there's a lot of stuff you can actually do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think that's a good use because it's something that like definitely lasts a long time. It's something you don't have to worry about like the chemicals or some shit, you know.
Actually, so going back to 3D printing, I came across a video where a guy built a machine to basically slice around and around, create these thin, like a long, thin strip out of plastic bottles.
Hmm.
And then he turned that, basically, that got turned into 3D printer filament. So you could
Hmm.
take plastic bottles and slice them around and then put that on a spool and use it in a 3D printer to 3D print something out of it,
Hmm.
which is like, okay, that's hyper efficient. That's
Yeah.
about as efficient as you can get. You don't need chemicals. You're not dealing with machines or any. Well, I mean, just this little electronic machine that spins it around with a sharp blade on it. But yeah, there. We need to encourage more of that. I think. I mean, I don't want to get all Captain Planet, but I mean, it's something I think about a lot. Like, I really care about taking care of the environment and not wasting. Like we waste a lot, and that's stupid. We don't need to. That's the thing. We do not need to. And maybe the obfuscation of how things work in the background is partially responsible for that. Like I said, go visit a refuse center, go visit a sewage treatment plant and see what goes on there, because that's kind of the end of where, when you put it in the bin and the truck comes and picks it up, or when you flush the toilet, like it goes somewhere. You got to be aware of where it goes, and you got to be careful of what you put in there and consider, hey, can I reuse this?
Yeah. Yeah, I constantly think about that. Like, of course, like when you have a wife, usually it's like, do we really need to keep that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Don't be a hoarder. I'm not encouraging
Yeah,
hoarding.
yeah.
Just for that sake. Like, okay, I have my guilty thing, which is bottled water. I buy bottled water, and that's the only water that I usually drink. Except for at work, we get the big 5-gallon things that get reused and stuff, and that would be better. I should probably start doing that, actually, because I think it's like $10 a month or something
Oh,
for
I used to have a machine in my house. Like,
yeah.
just go get the 5-gallon jugs, and it was super cheap and
Yeah,
tasted great. Like,
exactly. Like, it's good water. It's
yeah,
I yeah. I mean, not everybody
cold,
is.
hot,
Oh yeah, that
instantly.
that is the best part. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you want to make some ramen? You just put it the package in, or open the package, dump it in a bowl, and then you hit the red thing, and out comes super hot water.
Dude, are you eating raw ramen?
Oh yeah. Oh man. But there's all these little things that we could do. And I think, like, going back to the planned obsolescence thing, like actively choosing what you purchase. Obviously, you got your exceptions. You got to have some fun every once in a while. I mean, I definitely buy random shit off of Wish. But usually the stuff that I buy has some kind of purpose. And I've actually had a lot of stuff that's really high quality that's probably going to be with me until I die.
From
And
Wish?
yeah. Oh yeah. My whole day hike bag, survival kit, and water bottle thing mostly came from Wish. All the stuff. But
Wow.
yeah, it's fine to do that, but we have to be aware, I think, of big stuff, and be deliberate in our decision making. And maybe, there's always a little bit of room to spend a bit more and get something that is better made and better quality and is built to last longer or to be repaired and stuff. And we need to encourage companies like Unihertz that make stuff that's repairable and provide instructions and replacement parts and stuff. Like, they need all of our money, because other companies need to take notice of that and be like, oh shit, wow, everybody's going to Unihertz. What the fuck? And then Apple starts building their phones with screws on it and start selling replacement screens. And pretty soon, there you go. I don't know.
Well, that was quite a journey.
Yeah. Well, it's a topic that I get a little bit passionate about. You couldn't tell. Because it's not just financially beneficial, it's environmentally beneficial too. Like, you can't lose. And I mean, financially beneficial both for the consumer and for the company. Like, yeah, I don't know. Well, buy a 3D printer. That's my advice. They're not that expensive. They're very cheap. Learn how to use it. Go to Thingiverse. The thing is, it's not just replacement parts or whatever. There's a lot of novelty things, like little models of popular, like little figurines you can print and stuff. So instead of buying a Superman figurine or something from online, you could download the file and 3D print it on your own and then paint it up and stuff. It's great. Yeah, I highly recommend getting a 3D printer. Everybody should have one. Yeah.
On the biological end, let's hope that 3D printing organs will become a commonplace situation. So, educate yourself on embryonic stem cell research and try to look past all the political propaganda that it's killing babies and blah blah blah. None of that is true.
Why is it political?
None of that is true.
Nope.
So, like, if we can combine embryonic stem cell research with 3D printing, we can have organs when we need them, and we don't have to be obsolete humans. So
that's a good point. Well, yeah, I mean, you could go, you could have some kind of issue and need surgery or a transplant, and like, while they're prepping you for surgery, they start printing a replacement organ, and then fresh, hot off the presses, it comes out. And
I mean, the thing nobody realizes with organ donation and stuff, like, while it is very noble and saving lives and such, it's not without cost, because, like, you have to spend the rest of your life on immune suppressant drugs so that your body doesn't reject the organ. And embryonic stem cell research is kind of like what would prevent us from needing to do that.
Well, not only that, but like, they have to be, basically, the doctors have to be there when you die and harvest your organs immediately, put them on ice, put them on a plane, fly them in, like, right away to the place they need to go. Like, well, what if we didn't have to do that? What if you could just print whatever the hell you want, like, right there in the hospital? Like, oh shit, you were injured and it punctured your organ, your lung or something. Oh yeah, well, let's just print up another lung, and there you go. Like, how
need to print some money.
Yeah. I mean, that is something, and I don't know if there's organizations you could donate to that help fund that kind of research, but if there are, I would highly recommend donating to such organizations, because that's a way to encourage more of that. I mean, yeah, you could sit there and check boxes on a ballot, but that isn't going to do shit. We know it. The only way to do it is to do it ourselves, as a community, as a planet. We'll affect change that needs to be affected. And I think, honestly, dude, of all the blue LED was absolutely revolutionary in the last 100 years. Like, that was a game changer. But 3D printing organs would would probably be like the most revolutionary thing of the last 1,000 years.
Yeah.
That is so worthy of attention. I think we should probably put our attention to that above almost everything else.
Right. Well, if you think about the whole right to repair, why shouldn't you have a right to repair your body?
Mm-hmm. Well, and
If-
imagine too, a burn victim too. You could print
yeah.
up skin, like a sheet of skin.
That might be complicated, but I
Well,
suppose it's possible.
I'm sure there's some geniuses out there that would be able to figure it out. But
Like,
that would be a thing.
where would the zipper go?
The zipper? Well, in the back, of course. That would be funny, actually. Just for some reason, this popped into my head. Getting a tattoo of like a zipper. Like, oh yeah.
I thought about that. I got the scar here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, make a zipper like you're wearing a skin suit. Well, I mean, the possibilities are endless, and the thing is, because this is such a new frontier technology, we don't know what is possible until we develop it, just like anything else. So, but I could just like AI. It's like, well, it's yeah. People do the fun things, and they use generative AI to craft like goofy songs and make funny pictures or interesting pictures and stuff. But like the potential that technology holds goes way beyond that. And it's the same thing with 3D printing organs and tissue and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
We could basically repair humans on the fly. Like, you could have a field kit with a cellular 3D printer that could just, oh yeah, like the EMTs that show up at some kind of situation, they just have one in the back, and while they're driving you back to the hospital, they're 3D printing up all this stuff or whatever. I mean, I can imagine that happening, and that's still primitive tech. There may be a new generation.
Yeah, it's a little bit more complicated because the stem cells would have to come from you in order for them to not be rejected. And so, being that you can't collect embryonic stem cells retroactively, you would have to get adult stem cells from the organ in question.
Mm-hmm.
And there would be situations where that won't be viable because the organ is too damaged or whatever. Mm-hmm. So of course there are limitations. It's not going to be instant Star Trek universe sort of thing.
Oh,
but
well,
it is still like a huge step that we couldn't even have imagined 20 years ago.
No, and my point is that it's still in its infancy. That we don't know what kind of evolutionary changes this technology will experience. That it may be possible that there will be a machine that could do all that and just be like, oh yeah, you want a liver? Here it goes, and it just starts printing it up.
Well, for the last, I don't know, 15 years or something, I think there has been study into finding ways to roll back the evolution, let's say, of the cell to where an adult cell can kind of undifferentiate enough to be embryonic in nature. So like a skin cell could make a heart cell.
Oh, that's a game changer.
Right.
Yeah. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Oof. It's so
induced pluripotency, I think is what that was. I haven't really kept up with that, but it'd be interesting to see where that's at today.
It's a wild time, if you think about it, to be alive, to witness all the changes. Like when I was a little kid, we had the Atari 2600 and the TI 99 4A and stuff. Like they could barely do anything. And now, I mean, I'm surrounded by all this shit that's like can do way more than that. And just seeing the innovations out there and stuff like, oh my God, it's amazing the things that we've created and how fast things have changed. And I think AI is going to accelerate that exponentially. It's my prediction, although future predictions are usually wrong. Um, there are unforeseen things that come up that change the course of history, or well, what becomes history.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, what a time to be alive. It's so cool, so cool.
Yeah.
Amazing how we the flow of conversation, like the directions that we went in.
Yeah, like the idea of planned obsolescence in a biological sense is super interesting.
Mhm.
And it really does kind of have a lot of parallels with the world of commerce,
Mhm.
but also a lot of other speed bumps and hills to climb that
Yeah.
don't necessarily exist with products.
Mhm. Well,
So
for the religious viewers, did God build us humans with planned obsolescence in mind? You know, like the whole aging process and how you kind of start falling apart programmatically. Like, is that intentional or was that an accident?
yeah. Oh, well, we ate the fruit off the wrong tree.
It was metaphorical. It was not a fruit. It was a machine that anyway. Yeah. I won't go into that, but that would
That's a
be
whole other episode.
yeah. We should make that an episode. In fact,
We still get a lot of attention on our Man of Machine episodes.
mhm. Well, I've been slowly working on thinking. Well, I'm putting together some things to potentially build a functioning mana machine. The radioactive stuff is the expensive stuff and hard to get. However, I can buy strontium 90. So
Yeah, but like I said, proof of concept doesn't need it to be radioactive.
no, you're right.
That's just reportability.
Yeah. But I'd at least like to small scale test that idea, just to see if, like, can you create the kind of light necessary, the wavelengths and stuff like that from this radiation. Then okay, if that's doable, then we'll just put a light bulb in there basically and go from there. Hey, and we could 3D print the whole thing. Seriously. You could 3D print wood, you could 3D print metal. Like, it's kind of wild what you can do with these machines now. Yeah. Pretty cool. So, you need a part for your car. Yeah, just print one. You know?
What if we 3D printed a mana machine with AI integrated?
Well, the funny thing, I was looking around on Thingiverse for something. I think it was like stuff for the Ender 3, like additions and changes, because it comes kind of incomplete feeling. So I printed up a bunch of accessories, but one of the things that you could download a model of was the Ender 3. And I was like, whoa, that's some serious recursion right there. Like the Ender 3 3D printing itself. That's crazy. Self-replicating machines, man. Oh yeah.
Definitely on the path toward a cyborg future.
Yeah. I now see. Okay, I'm actually more optimistic about such things than because we see in the movies like Terminator and whatnot, the machines taking over, and I don't see that. I see like almost kind of a harmonious future where technology and nature and humanity sort of merge together in a harmonious way. As long as we keep the politicians out of it, that's the key, because the politicians will weaponize anything.
Oh yeah.
The average people just want to get by, and Yeah.
Yeah.
As usual, the end stuff is the juiciest. Oh man.
Yeah, we went all over the map, even in the last 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And this show needs more attention.
Definitely.
This is, oh my God. Well,
People need to 3D print an attention span.
oh God, no kidding. You true dot dat. Oh man. Yeah.
All right. Well,
My
my
teeth are
back
floating.
teeth are floating.
Chinks. Yeah. So I guess that's a good point to end on. Leave your comments down there. Tell us what you think about everything we said. If you have other thoughts about, geez, I mean, all this stuff, planned obsolescence, 3D printing, medical technologies, and the future, whatever. God, I can't remember all the things we covered.
Yeah.
But
Hey, under 3, print me a bigger bladder.